Hi everyone, my name is Adriana Papaleo and I'm here with TG this morning and my beautiful model Taney. We're going to be doing an inspiration that I'm calling the Tattered Pixie, which is a soft grown out feel while still having a lot of strength inside of it. The great thing is that Taney is very adventurous and creative, and so we're going to let that shine through in the haircut. To start the cut today, first of all, we're thinking about products. Wash and care is key with Taney, since she does have a color service on her hair. We went in with the Resurrection shampoo and conditioner. The Resurrection shampoo and conditioner is great when you have a color service because it helps keep the health of the hair. Product-wise, after the wash and care, we're gonna go right in with the Back It Up. Taney's got some really great movement to her hair, so it's gonna give support to that movement and also start to seal down the cuticle a little bit. The Back It Up is also great for the stylist and from a stylist perspective because it helps to keep those partings and sections nice and clean. And when you're working with those shorter lengths, a cream base with a little bit of support is great for that purpose. Definitely my hero product here today is the Queen for a Day Thickening Spray. So this is gonna give more support to the movement and the wave and the texture. It's also gonna thicken it up a little bit and give some grit. So as I said, we're gonna start with a horseshoe. In order to get that horseshoe nice and balanced, my first parting is always going to be that center profile, which allows me to know where I am on the head shape. I'm gonna be using a horseshoe that dips down just slightly in the back so I can maintain some weight and work a technique in the crown. And I will start left and work to the right, and then I will come to the front again and work the opposite side back to center. It's a lot easier than trying to go all the way around the head shape, trying to create balance. Because I know I'm going to do that block layer in front of the ear, I'm just gonna go ahead and get that out of the way. I will use a guide from behind, a center vertical in back. We talked about maintaining all of the softness that is in Taney's hair, and then this is really where the shift is going to come through. I'm going to be working that line square. All right, so from my center vertical, I'm just gonna have Taney tilt her head, and we're going to establish this guide. So I'm combing this out at 90 from the head shape, and I'm deciding this length visually. I know that I want it to be quite cropped, but still have room for the movement that Taney really likes to see in her hair. So we've established that first guide. I'm gonna come back to center and put that profile, that center vertical right back in place so I always know where I am on left and right. From here, I'm gonna continue with very soft diagonal forwards in terms of my partings and sections. My distribution and elevation will remain the same. So it's being elevated to 90 and distributed to 90, and I'm point cutting that square using the guide from behind. By working on a slight diagonal forward as opposed to, let's say, a vertical or a slight diagonal back, that's going to gently move the hair forwards, and that just encourages the softness that I want to see in the Tattered Pixie. Since my distribution is at 90, it's really important that I'm thinking about the way that I'm combing the hair, which is my distribution, as well as where I'm standing and the size of my sections. If I take sections that are really large, larger than an inch, then we're gonna create over direction in that section, which is going to get longer. If I don't move with the section and I stay in one place, I will over direct that section backwards, which is gonna increase my length. So I'm making sure to walk with every section. The other thing to consider is that the parting does dip down in the back, so I need to think about that elevation moving along with the section, the horseshoe section as well. If I don't change the elevation from back moving up with the section, I'm going to end up much heavier and longer around the parietal ridge moving forward. One key element here is that this is the section that I just cut. I want to split that in half before I take my new parting, as opposed to just combing everything down. This is going to help keep me on track and also give me a strong guide moving forward. Since it's a point cut guide, the guide is softer and it can be harder to see when it's behind the hair that you're cutting. So I split this in half, get that hair out of the way, and take that second portion for the new parting. So this section at the top of the ear is going to be the last section that I approach in this manner. Then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the opposite side. Everything in front of the ear, I'm going to leave for that block layer. So now you can see as we're moving around, we still have all of this softness, but none of the weight and bulk that we have in through to the opposite side that hasn't been cut yet. So I'm coming straight back to center back, where I know I have that guide, and now I'm taking a slight diagonal forward. One key point here is that my hand and body position have to change in order to create the same angle from side to side. So I'll tilt Taney, and from here, my elbow comes up. Again, distribution and elevation are both at 90. My cut is point cut square. Making sure to redistribute so I know the distribution and elevation is staying in place and I'm not cutting past that second knuckle. Always splitting the old before I take the new hair. Especially as we get around the parietal ridge where the horseshoe section is at its highest, it's going to be very common that we drop that elevation when our elbow is raised. So I make sure to redistribute and keep myself on point when it comes to that elevation. All right, so the underneath portion in back of the ear is done. We're gonna move into that block layer. If you wanted, you could start this a little bit further back in terms of being on top of the ear, but I wanted to start it a little further forward so that way I didn't have too much length around the ear. Okay, so the point of a block layer is to keep all the softness and collapse all of the weight. I love all of this movement around Taney's ear. I want to keep that. I don't love all of the bulk that happens around the parietal ridge. So that's what the block layer is gonna change. I'm standing on the opposite side that I am working, so I can control my elevation. I am going slightly higher than 90. Even though the rest of the cut was at 90, I really want to collapse the weight here. Bring everything up to that stationary guide, which on Taney, a lot of it doesn't even reach, it's just falling out. And then from here, point cutting that line. I'll go just the slightest bit shorter around as I get closer to the face, just so that way I don't have too much length pushing into the temple area. So really quick, really efficient way to collapse internally and keep the softness. Underneath is complete, so we'll move into above the horseshoe. I'm gonna use two different techniques, one in the front, one in the back. So I'm taking two diagonal backs from that center parting all the way down to the ear. So I know I'm maintaining the softness around the ear and I can work that fringe in reference to it. So first thing I'm gonna do is just go ahead and get the general idea of length, and then I'm gonna layer this fringe. I'm using the guide from the side, that soft bit at the parietal ridge, and from here we talked about rounding that fringe in through to the front and bringing that above the brow. So I'm point cutting it on the same angle as the hairline. So using that guide from the parietal ridge at the side and working up into the fringe. Okay, now I'm just gonna go through that fringe and get rid of a bunch of the weight by bringing it off the round of the head, 90 degrees, and softening it with a point cut. This is gonna give more of that tattered vibe and softness. Working vertical sections inside of the fringe, keeping it at 90 degrees off the round and 90 degrees off of the section. I'm only gonna do that to where the temple area is because I don't need to release density in the temple. Coming back to center and repeating the same technique on the opposite side. So from here, I'll come into the radial so I can do the technique in the crown. So I'll establish the radial, looking for where the hair naturally goes off to the side versus naturally goes backwards. So I'm gonna start in the back by taking a center vertical, looking for that guide underneath, and just a really nice shattered point cut. I'm maintaining mostly square so I don't get too tight in the crown. As I get right about where the head rounds, I'm gonna increase that elevation just slightly, which is gonna give me a bit of that soft feeling. Pivoting around the back, following my guide. I'm creating more of an increase in length here. The idea is that I don't want it to get too tight with the head shape. I'm repeating the same technique on the opposite side, but if you notice how engaged my body is, I really need, in order to stay square and control that slight bit of elevation, I have to engage and bend my knee. If I don't, I will increase the elevation and I will take out the weight that I want to maintain. All right. So the last bit now, we have everything done except for this internal portion in front of the radial. I'm gonna go ahead and see where my guides are coming together, which is pretty much square. So I can connect through square to that, and then I have to think about that disconnection in through to the sides. I definitely am going to leave a disconnection. I have to just decide how much. So using that guide from right behind the radial, bringing everything up, shattered point cut, square. Right through to that fringe. Take a sliver from behind the radial, moving forwards. I'll work on continuing on those slight diagonal forwards. I'm gonna bring everything up. I'm gonna follow my guide from internally, not my guide from the parietal ridge, and point cut that square off of the round of the head. That block layer underneath, collapsing the weight, allows me to keep more of a disconnection. If I built up too much weight underneath, the roundness is going to be very full at the parietal ridge, and I wouldn't be able to maintain this disconnection because there'd just be too much hair, too much bulk. This last section is my fringe, but I'll just comb everything up just to make sure I blend everything through. So, cut's done. We'll do some personalizing once it's dry, but it's really all about that tattered pixie vibe, keeping the softness around the perimeter all the way through and maintaining length in through to the top so the movement can come out. Now that the cut is done, we're gonna go through with the style. Great thing is that the hero products are already doing their magic. That Back It Up is sealing the cuticle and imparting the movement in the hair, and the Queen for a Day thickening spray is adding the plump and the grit and support to the style out. Okay, so to style out the textured pixie, we have to think about the products that we want to use. So I'm going to go in with the Back It Up, which is going to help to seal Taney's cuticle and give a little bit of that movement and support the end style out with a bit of grit. From there, I'm going to layer right on top that Queen for a Day. It's one of my favorite products in the world. This really gives that second day feel so that the hair has more of a thatchy effect. You see the texture come through the cut. Okay, so I'm gonna rub the product through my hands, distribute it evenly, and then I'm going to not necessarily rake all the hair back because I love the way it looks. I'm just gonna push the texture in using that product so it distributes it through the wave. And then the Queen for a Day thickening spray for that extra thatchy effect, I'm gonna spray that right on top. Most important with Taney Style Out is that I'm not gonna manipulate the hair almost at all. I can always use a brush to detail if I need, but I love this movement, so I'm going to use the dryer without the nozzle to dry it. I'm gonna go medium speed, medium heat here, because I am gonna be quite close to Taney's head and I don't wanna burn her or the hair. And then from here, all I'm gonna do is use my hands to almost hold the hair stationary, so that way it doesn't blow around until most of the moisture is out. Now that almost all of the moisture is out, I'm just gonna start to rough up that cuticle a bit by using the air to blow the hair around more and my hands to release the texture and the product. All right, so just pushing the texture where I like to see it, pushing out that fringe, letting these little bits in the softness in the perimeter come out. So I'm gonna finish it off with the Troublemaker, which is gonna allow all of that texture to stay in place and really have that roughed up, tattered feel. Again, pushing it into place and just letting that sit for a minute so it can dry and cure, and then we're set to go. Okay, everyone, again, thank you so much for being here. My name is Adriana Papaleo. This is my beautiful model, Taney, and my inspiration of a tattered, soft pixie. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you're looking for more inspiration, take yourself to bedhead.com.